in Nigeria, what you have is an aspirational culture, an aspirational society. And to the extent that the white man brought education, and to the extent that Nigerians thought education was a great thing to have, they felt that the white man had brought something that would improve their lives. In the 60s and 70s, when a lot of things began to fall apart, when a lot of the new democracies ended up engulfed in coup d'etat, I think my father's generation became slightly disappointed, and maybe they became nostalgic for something which my generation, for instance, was glad no longer existed. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I wasn't a politicized kid. I was just this kid from a middle class home who went to a Catholic school, spent a lot of time in the library, desperately wanted to be a writer, and just read a lot. And it wasn't really until after I left university, when the economic and political system in Nigeria began to go to the dogs, that I began to read books on our history. I was trying to understand why things just didn't seem to work at all. And I discovered that that basically the political system in Nigeria had been flawed from day one, from the very first day of independence. Anyone who was looking from the outside would realize that that it was bound to crumble, and we're still living with the effects now. In the case of Nigeria, basically when the British left in 1960, they left a political class that was already, even at that point, divided against itself. It was made up of intellectuals, the middle class from all over Nigeria, but some of the people in power felt that they're part of Nigeria, Nigeria was not yet ready for independence, while others felt that Nigeria would have attained independence years earlier if these people from the other parts of Nigeria hadn't really almost literally begged the British to stay. And the reason there were these divisions because of the system. The British basically during the colonial era practiced a system called the dual mandate, indirect rule. And so they would, when they came, for instance, to southwestern Nigeria, they had district offices, but really they had a system where the chiefs and the kings ran things and just reported to the district officers, but they didn't directly intervene. For instance, not in the way the French did in the French colonies. In Western Nigeria, as a result of this encounter, schools were built, churches were built, and very quickly an educated elite emerged. In the north, again with the same system, because of religion, because of Islam, the chiefs and the king said, okay, yes, we accept you as our colonial power, but can you just stay out of our business of things? And so they, in most parts of the north, they would not allow churches and schools to be built. The consequence of that, about 100 years later, was that there was an imbalance between the north and the south, where in the South you had by now if 2 or 3 generations of educated people. In the North, you didn't have that, and so it created a lot of tension, and it was that tension. Basically, the North felt that they didn't have enough. They basically felt it was just an unequal situation. They felt that they would be excluded from power because they needed a lot of time to catch up with the South, and that in the end ended up in a civil war in Nigeria.